I am a never again Trumper. Why? Because I want to win. And we lose with Trump. It was really clear to us in 18, in 20, and now in 2022.
Add the former speaker to the long list of Republicans now publicly distancing themselves from Donald Trump after 2 disappointing election cycles during Trump's term. The supposed centrist wing of the Republican Party is trying to figure out what to do next. But keep in mind, this is taking place now, not because the former president incited an attack on the Capitol, not because he pushes dangerous conspiracy theories, and not because he knowingly misrepresented the realities of COVID. Some Republicans are finally dumping Trump now because he's losing. So let's break it all down with Juanita Tolliver, and veteran political strategist of progressive candidates and causes, and Jason Johnson, a politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University. He is also an MSNBC political contributor. Juanita, let's turn to you first. So we know that following this election, all of these centrist Republicans said, voters have said enough is enough. They do not want extremes. So do you see a scenario where moderate Republicans could actually work with Democrats to get something done here and break through the situation that they've been in?
Absolutely, Steph. And I think that's McCarthy's biggest fear. I think that's the biggest fear of all the MAGA Republicans in the House right now. They fear that having 3, maybe 4 of their members break off and try to cut a deal with Democrats on bipartisan legislation, which we know the problem solver fraction of the GOP loves, then that is what's going to happen. And it puts them at a loss. It nullifies McCarthy's power. It makes him look weak, and it shows that he can't run his caucus. But the reality is voters decided, again, like you said, they didn't want that extremism, so they limited the margin that McCarthy's dealing with. And let's be real, any fraction within the GOP can grind him to a standstill, whether it's the Marjorie Taylor Greens, whether it's the Freedom Caucus, whether it's the problem solvers. They are in full control of McCarthy, and they all know it. And so they're making their demands right now before the January vote, where we know McCarthy is desperate to get to 218, because they're all jockeying for that position, leveraging their role in this limited majority.
Jason, what do you think? Members of the Problem Solvers Caucus like one another, Republican members, a lot more than they like Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz. But do they have the guts to make this their moment to actually rid themselves of the extremes of their party?
No, of course not. And part of this is because it depends on how we're defining who's a moderate and who's a real problem solver. Because most of these people aren't like what is moderate in a GOP that voted to protect Donald Trump after January 6th? What is moderate in a GOP that was marching along with Donald Trump for the last 6 or 7 years about building a wall, about anti-trans members, about anti-black members? I mean, like, what is moderation at this point? This isn't moderation. These people aren't really willing to make change. They're only making decisions based on the fact that they don't think they're going to be able to get anything done, and they're going to get trashed again in 2024. So are they going to make a stand? They'll make a public stand. It's easy to talk now. It's November. And then people are going to go home, talk to their constituents, have some dinner in Washington, D.C., and they're probably going to make McCarthy leader, and they're not going to give him too much trouble in 2023 and 2024. I think a lot of this is just talking and hand-wringing right now because everybody's bruised, but they're going to look in the mirror and say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, we're still Republicans next year, and they'll be back to the same old nonsense.
But doggone it, people don't like them. Actual moderate Republicans are all retired at this point. Juanita, Kevin McCarthy has vowed at this point to remove Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, and Ilhan Omar from committees. Do you think that could backfire on him?
Look, let's keep in mind why Kevin McCarthy is doing this. He went to the floor when Democrats were holding Gosar accountable, when Democrats were holding Marjorie Taylor Greene accountable for their racist, harmful, violent, anti-Semitic language and posts on social media. That's where he made this commitment, because he knew this was his pitch to those MAGA Republicans. This is what would get them on his side. And this is his first attempt to deliver on that promise. But the reality is just like Representative Omar said, he is the one shepherding through these anti-Semitic people. He's the one shepherding through these racist individuals and protecting them. And so what I think is going to happen next is he's going to try to keep moving forward with this. But Democrats absolutely need to keep calling this out, name it for what it is, and be explicitly clear about what he's harboring when he's protecting these MAGA Republicans who are doing the violence, who are making these harmful statements every single day.
Jason, what do we need to know about this runoff in Georgia? You used to live there. You helped Stacey Abrams with her campaign. Barack Obama is headed there soon to show his support for Senator Warnock. What should we know?
First off, it's the most ridiculously expensive Senate campaign in American history.
Right.
It's an indicator of how important this race is to both sides. But I think the most important thing to recognize is this. A 50-50 Senate, we've seen some of the challenges that Democrats and Joe Biden has in passing legislation. A 51-49 Senate is completely different. We may never have to hear the name Kristen Sinema again because Joe Manchin at least occasionally works on things. It is a huge, huge, huge change, a huge possibility for Democrats if they can get this extra seat, because then they can actually completely legislate, and it'll be easier for them to spend the next 2 years blaming Republicans in the House, because they'll be able to say, hey, look, we passed this in the Senate. We passed this with our most high-profile people. We negotiated with Joe Manchin. It's those crazies in the House who haven't gotten things done. So politically and policy-wise, it's important. And lastly, it's also key for judges. So that's one big reason why Georgia is super-duper important. And so many people are spending a lot of money on the ground. There's lawsuits. And frankly, right now, I don't think Herschel Walker is going to have the juice to pull it off.
We will soon find out. Juanita Tolliver, Jason Johnson, thank you both so much.